Hello, everyone. I am Krandall Brantley from Buckeyes Daily. Ryan Day talked about the impact of expanded playoff on the game and more news on the Big Ten agreeing unanimously on a 2014 playoff format. So according to Athletic, Ryan Day believes eliminating the Big Ten championship game could actually make the rivalry week, the game, especially the game, even more meaningful in the expanded playoff era. So Day said removing the title game could make rivalry games feel more final and important. Instead of teams getting a second chance in Indianapolis, the regular season would completely determine playoff seeding, and conference standing. They also argued the final week of the season across the Big Ten would carry more national importance overall. So, this is what they said. I think it could be even more important. They said teams would still have major stakes to play for during rivalry week. You're playing for either a chance to get into the playoff or a chance to get seated high to get a first round bye, they said. They also explained that even elite teams already projected into the playoff would still be battling for positioning. So they said this: if you're already maybe predicted to be one of the top 8 schools, which 8 teams make the have a bye, then you're fighting for a high seed. This is probably the biggest quote for Ryan Day. I think with the elimination of championship games, it keeps that rivalry as fierce as it's ever been, the stakes just as high. So why Day thinks it helps the Big Ten. Day's argument wasn't just about Ohio State, Michigan, about a conference championship game. It was this: every rivalry game that final weekend becomes more meaningful. More teams will stay relevant in the playoff race later into the season. Matchups like Oregon versus Washington, USC versus UCLA, Indiana versus Purdue, Penn State versus Michigan State can suddenly carry major playoff implications. Another important point: they also hinted at eliminating the conference championship games could help player health and player preparation. Instead of risking injuries in the title conference championship week, teams could get healthier for the college football playoff, coaches could prepare earlier for the playoff, and the season could end sooner for roster turnover with the portal and early enrollment beginning. So they said this: let the season go all the way into the third and fourth week of January does not make sense. Here's more news on the 2014 playoff format. So, according to ESPN, Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti made it crystal clear this week. The Big Ten wants a 2014 college football playoff, and they have zero interest in a 16-team model. Speaking at the Big Ten spring meetings in California, Petitti said this: we've had zero conversations about 16 teams. Plan B is now what we have now, 12 teams. We would stay with what we have now. That's a major statement because for the playoff format to change for 2026, the Big Ten SEC have to agree on a new system. Right now, the SEC still leans toward 16 teams, while the Big Ten is pushing hard for 24. TD's biggest argument comes down to one word: access. So, he believes more teams staying alive later in the season is better for fans, television, and college football as a whole. TD said this: keeping more teams in the race is better for everybody and the fans. And he pushed back hard against the idea that a 2014 playoff would hurt the regular season. Instead, he says it would actually make November games more meaningful because teams could constantly be fighting for playoff positioning. Under the proposed format, teams seeded 1 through 8 would earn byes in home games. Teams in the middle would battle for hosting rights. Bubble teams would fight just to stay inside the top 24. The TD explained this: at 24, you're always trying to improve your resume. He also pointed out that unlike the NFL, college teams wouldn't really have the luxury of resting players late in the season because playoff seeding would constantly shift. Another huge factor here is money. The TD said eliminating conference championship games under a 16-team model could cost the Power Four conferences more than 200 million collectively. That's one reason the Big Ten believes 16 doesn't work financially or structurally. He said this: I just don't think it works economically. Petit also revealed the Big Ten believes a 2014 playoff could realistically begin as early as 2027 season, that's next year, if the SEC agrees. And according to 11 Warriors, the support inside the Big Ten for a 2014 playoff is basically unanimous. but TD said all 18 Big Ten schools support expansion. And he said this: inside our league, the deep commitment to 24 and the access. Some coaches around the conference absolutely love the idea. Minnesota head coach BJ Fleck said this: we absolutely love the 2014 playoff. His reasoning was simple. Programs without Ohio State or Michigan level resources would finally have a much better chance to constantly compete for playoff spots. But TD also argued expanding the playoff could actually improve the atmosphere and importance of late season games. So we said this: your November content, your competitiveness is way up. Your stadiums are looking great. Everybody's jumping around. The overall message from the Big Ten this week was pretty clear. We believe a larger playoff creates more meaningful games, more fan interest, more national relevance, more opportunities for programs across the country. But until the SEC agrees, none of it moves forward. So right now, the college football future may come down to one question: will the SEC eventually join the Big Ten and backing a 2014 playoff? So I'll talk about both comments, the playoff expansion and Ryan Day's comments. I do believe that the game would be more intense if they didn't have conference championship week, because it's always in the back of your mind when this game go to Indy or you lose, don't go to Indy. I think that would help, and I think OSU is pretty had some injuries or just banged up from the Michigan game where they played Indiana this past year. No excuse. I'm just saying it's pretty tough to have your biggest game of the year and follow it up the following week in the Big Ten title game with this format. So I do believe that that would help and would be a risking the chance of having them play back-to-back weeks. Where you beat Michigan, you got to play them again in Indy where stakes are even higher. That wouldn't be the whole year bragging rights if that were to play out. But as far as 2014 playoff, I think this helps the teams that are mid. Like, I'm not saying these aren't good programs. Yes, I'm a fan of a team that's a powerhouse, but I think this is a win for teams that are mid, like Minnesota. I don't think it's a win for teams that your fan base of Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. Some of you're winning in this format. So with that, I hope the SEC is not agree with this format. I've been saying this for a while. The SEC sticks to 12 teams, 16 teams. If the Big Ten wants 24 and SEC wants 16, we stick with 12, which is fine with me. I think 12 is a good amount for the playoff. I don't think it needs to expand to 24 at all. You're going to have a bunch of mid teams competing for spots, which they're not even have a chance to even make the playoff, win a championship. The playoffs supposed to be teams that make the championship that can have a chance to win the championship. In Indiana is a good example. They didn't make it off of a 12-team, 2014 playoff format. NIL's changed things. You have a chance to make a run. I think a few years ago, Minnesota's better than Indiana, so Indiana can win a championship. I think that it's realistic for other teams in the Big Ten to make a championship run as well. You don't need 24 teams to prove that. And then you have teams, let's say you're a top 8 seed. You get a bye and a home game. All right, so OSU's win and then to play in December in the cold. Now, look, it was great atmosphere a couple years ago against Tennessee, but do you have to do that? I don't even have to have games in Columbus in December when it's snowing every year. You earn that home game. I think it should be straight up where if you have a home game, it's because you didn't make it to the top 8. I think those top 8 should have games right there at home. Could be nothing wrong with that. I don't mind them playing in Columbus, but still, you shouldn't have to play that many games for a championship if you already earned the right to be in the format. So um, there are other things that you mentioned as well that it would be more fan interest. I disagree. I think more people wouldn't care if you're sitting there watching a 20 seed, 24 seed compete for a championship run. They're not actually potential to win the game. You have more than half the field have a chance to win a championship. That's not fun. 14 playoff, you had blowouts every year. In the 14 playoff, how many blowouts are going to have at 2014 playoff? It would be no. You don't. We don't need 24 teams in this run. So I do agree with this. There's 24 teams. It should be automatic bids for the group of 5 conferences. Let the MAC, let the Conference USA, let all these teams their chance to win a title or compete for a playoff. But you don't want that. You want five Big Ten teams, five SEC teams, automatic bids. No, there are not that many great teams in each league to win a championship, title caliber teams to go on and win. So let me know what you think in the comments. Would a 2014 playoff actually be good for the sport and would be good for the game if you eliminate Big Ten championships? And so, one more thing, we move on. CBS Sports, they ranked the 2026 football season. Um, they had a ranking for how complete the teams are, the top 10 most complete rosters. And their explanation for this was teams aren't just top heavy with stars, but built with depth, balance, and real 2 deep talent across every position. CBS emphasizes that winning a national championship now takes more than elite quarterbacks or skilled players. The difference is roster insulation, especially along the offensive and defensive lines where games are still decided. That's why CBS ranks programs based on overall roster completeness, factoring in recruiting classes, transfer portal additions, and returning production. So, number two on the list was Ohio State. Not number one, we'll explain that later, but Ohio State. CBS Sports ranks Ohio State one of the most complete rosters in college football entering 2026. And so he says that these key reasons: elite receivers, led by Jeremiah Smith, the best player in college football, high ceiling quarterback with Julian Sayin, Heisman finalist, one of the deepest overall skill position groups in the country, and major portal additions with this list: running back Jacoby Jackson from Florida, edge rusher Quay Russaw out of Alabama, defensive lineman James Smith out of Alabama, Earl Little Jr., safety from Florida State, and Terry Moore, safety from Duke. So the overall takeaway: Ohio State isn't just elite at the top, they are built to survive injuries, rotation, all the way through a playoff run. Who's number one on the list? It was not Ohio State, it was Texas, the week two opponent. Texas got number one as one of the most as the most complete roster in college football. So he has this. Quarterback, led by Arch Manning, is going to be the Heisman favorite early on. And then deep receiver group, you have Cam Coleman coming in from Auburn, one of the best receivers in the country. That'll be a tough matchup for Ohio State. Can they contain Cam Coleman? They're one of the strongest offensive lines in the country, and they have defensive line, edge rusher, and linebacker Colin Simmons. And then CBS describes Texas as a structurally sound roster, meaning they don't rely on just stars, but they have elite depth everywhere. So tough a matchup for Ohio State in week two. Then I'll mention other teams. Oregon number four, that's matchup for Ohio State early November. And then USC number seven with great run game. They mentioned King Miller. And then US for Oregon, you have defensive lineman Mateo Uagale, the little brother of Clemson, former Clemson quarterback EJ Uagale. Um, and then Indiana number nine with the offensive rebuild and new core. They have Josh Hoover, transfer quarterback from TCU, and wide receiver Nick Marsh at Michigan State, who was a very good receiver for them. So, final takeaway for CBS Sports overall message is consistent. They talk about complete rosters with depth, balance, and strength in the trenches will be separation for teams at the top and who can win national championship. So overall message for this segment in this section: look, Ohio State is a very tough schedule, and CBS believes Texas overall is more talented and more depth than Ohio State. That's saying a lot. They said it on the field in week two, maybe a rematch in the playoff. And so with that, I'll mention one more thing on expanded playoff. As far as the playoff format, a reasoning for not wanting Ohio State to have or for just in general have home games as the reward is because you're adding more games for more elite teams. If you're a team of a number one team in the country, you want to play 4 games to win a championship. The NFL doesn't have you forced to win 4 games. You're one seed in the NFL, you win 3 games, you win a championship. Now in this format, it's been like five maybe. Yeah, think about it. Maybe 4 to 5 chains to win a championship. With OSU, they played 4 games a couple years ago because they lost the game. They didn't, but if they were number one seed, they have to win 3 games. that should be more than enough to tell a championship. If you're number one seed, your right should be okay. I got to bye and win 3 games for a championship, not risking more injuries playing the 20th seed in the first round at home in the cold. That's my reasoning of not having automatic home games for the top 4, 8 seed. So let me know what you think in the comments about the expanded playoff, Ryan Day's comments on the game, and this CBS Sports rankings about the overall depth of these teams. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube about Buckeyes Daily on Apple Podcast and Spotify. All right, go Bucks.